disturbing today to, to look around and see what's happening, right? 70 years after independence, we have some staggering statistics. But 1 out of 3 Indians making less than 76 rupees. Half of our homes don't have toilets. 3/4 don't have drinking water, right? India is number 134 on the list of countries in terms of ease of doing business. Okay, so it's behind Yemen and Pakistan, which is quite a shocking statistics. 1/3 of our politicians are criminals. And the elected government of the world's largest democracy with the rule of law tries to overturn a Supreme Court ruling banning criminals from politics. So I find this, this is truly, truly quite an alarming situation. What are we going to do about it? Because we can't sit quiet. Now, I'm coming to philanthropy. This is not a political speech. I'm not joining Aam Aadmi Party, unlike many others, and so on and so forth. It's not a political speech. So we have giant needs in our country, and who's to decide, whether to contribute to incredibly passionate local causes, or highly scalable things. That's your decision. But I decided to focus on 2 things. One is, at Microsoft, I learned about discipline and scale. So we took a simple thing. 2004, when I joined the company, it was one of the most hated companies in the world. Okay? Because people hate success and they hate companies that make money without doing their social obligations. So we started a small thing called computer literacy through a program called Shiksha. And it was started as CSR, except I refused to treat it as CSR. I said, we'll make it real. And by the time I left in 2011, Shiksha was now in 14 states, 35 million children, according to the audited figures, who had learned how to use computers, whatever. And I realized, if you want to do something, you have to be disciplined, you have to think about sustainability, you have to think about business models and all these kinds of things that Narayan alluded to. And so as a result of that, one of the things I've done is, with 2 other Microsoft guys, we formed this fund called United Seed Fund, and we invest in early stage social enterprises which are trying to solve desperately important problems, whether it's skilling, education, healthcare outcomes, financial inclusion, all these things, but with a business model and promising people a reasonable return on their investment. So that's one part of it, social enterprise. The other part of it is, how are we going to solve that other big issue, which is the breakdown of governance in our country at the national level, at the level of states and cities. And it's sort of futile blaming all these politicians. The reality is, the fundamental problem is middle class and upper middle class Indians withdrew from society. We have all withdrawn from society. We don't care whether government services work or not, because we privatize it. If the education system doesn't work, no problem. Send your kids to private schools, send them abroad. Healthcare system doesn't work, you go to private hospitals. If the grid doesn't work, buy a generator. If there's no water, drill your well. And obviously, if the government's not going to deliver anything, why bother even voting? Because it's one set of scoundrels versus the other, so 38% turnout. So we've seen this extreme withdrawal of people like us from society. And if we don't reverse that, just sort of relying on Narendra Modi to win the election and fix it is not going to happen. So the other part of what I decided is, we've got to find a way to get successful, middle class, and educated urban Indians re-engaged in society. And one way of doing it is through politics and all that. But there's a different way. I found that almost everybody I spoke to has this deep desire after the age of 40 to give back. Okay? They're concerned about the way our cities and our country is going. There's this desire to make a contribution. Not everybody can write a huge check, but everybody is willing to write a small check. But they don't know how to make a difference. Who do you write your check to? Will the money be put to good use or not? Okay, I'm not ready to give up a great job on Wall Street, but I'm willing to give half a Saturday, but I don't know where to go and give my time. So and as a result, nobody does anything because it's not easy. So I said, let's create a platform where you can meet instantly like-minded people, and you can begin to get involved in organizations and causes that you care about. And that's why I started this thing called Social Venture Partners in Bangalore 2 years ago. And the idea is simple. Get people together, get them to write a modest check for 3 years, and then let's use venture capital discipline to find organizations that are doing good work in a number of areas, and we pick livelihoods coincidentally, not-for-profits, NGOs that create jobs, and start working with them not only to give them money, but to help them scale up. But if you have, in Bangalore, we have 70 plus members. And as a result, Pune and people in Pune, Mumbai, and other cities have come forward. We're starting SVP in all these places. But if you have 70, 100 influential, successful people, do you just stop at this? Or do you begin to start addressing some of the fundamental issues in the city, the governance issues I talked about? So we decided, okay, let's try an experiment. In Bangalore, let's take on that garbage issue, right, which bothers every one of us. Every street corner, there's a garbage dump with rats and dogs, and waiting for the plague to break out. So we funded an NGO. They sued BBMP. Now they're working in partnership with BBMP to try and find the fundamental solutions. We've decided we're also going to support BPAC because they seem to be doing good things. And similarly, we're going to go city by city by city and scale up. Why do I give this long-winded answer? I think it is important to give back. There are a million good causes in India which need your money, which need your time, which need your expertise. Okay? Some of them are small. Some of them have the potential to be scaled up. But fundamentally, if we don't fix governance, everything else is a Band-Aid. Whose job is it to deliver primary and secondary education? Whose job is it to deliver primary healthcare outcomes? And it's the governments. And if we can't get government to accountable and fix it, there's no amount of philanthropy that's going to fill that gap. So somewhere, as you think about where should I put my money, where should I give my time, where should I use my influence, I argue that you should figure out ways to actually impact, influence systemic failures and address governance as well. And you'll obviously find your own platforms and vehicles for doing this. So personally, I've chosen these two engines or vehicles. One is social enterprises that are addressing these desperate needs, but with a scale-up kind of intention. And the second one is to find a way of engaging 100 people at least, city by city by city, 20, 30 cities, and then eventually putting pressure on accountability in government. In addition, of course, every time somebody who's doing something worthy comes along and moves your spirit, moves your heart, you need to reach for your wallet again. So this is my perspective.
This is phenomenal. There isn't going to be a Kalki avatar that's going to come. So every one of us has to become a Kalki avatar ourselves, right? And then make an impact. And I think that's really what I heard. It's fantastic. And I also heard from you two things, Ravi. You said that bring the discipline and the governance of the venture process and the energy of the venture process and use that to scale. I heard you use that phrase. And that's interesting. And I'm going to just shift back, Dr. Shil. You said that there are a couple of other problems that were bothering you. But I also want you to, if you can continue to reflect on what you heard from both Narayan and Ravi, which is, there is the emotional, the angle that's relating to putting a lot of heart in, which is absolutely, that's a start point, absolutely incredibly important. In your own experience of 19 years and what you have seen outside, what they spoke about, how important it is. And I just want you to particularly add on the governance dimension, and that's something that would help the audience here start appreciating. In addition to the area of interest, they would also have to have some mechanism by which they should be able to assess, is this a cause or is this an NGO that I can support? Will it run well and will it sustain itself? Because once you make and I'll come to the giving at multiple stages part, but once you make that investment, you would want that investment to sustain for a period of time.
Ravi, you said venture capital performance. So when that is given to an NGO, for example, what do you really assess? Apart from the due diligence that you will undertake of a particular cause or an organization, when you will be very typically taking a look at the ROI, I think there is absolutely another very neglected dimension of an NGO performance, and that has got to deal with what is the qualitative change that I am bringing about in my organization, in the lives of the people whom we impact. For example, can we have not just measuring my annual report in terms of what is the surpluses, if at all there is in an NGO running year after year, or do you also see and measure the well-being as a result of the work that I have done? How do you measure the wellness impact? That is one. Number two, people also, it's quite easy to identify causes where poverty is a criterion. Apart from the poverty, the physical poverty, which is very easily identifiable, there has also got to be, as givers, a sensibility, a sensitivity to some of the emotional sufferings people are going through. Older people, elderly people, okay. Very poor people, yes, they have huge amount of suffering. But there is also a state where abuse, neglect, loneliness can also be a very painful process of living itself. So if the NGO is attending to this type of a very fine dimension of people's existence, if you are dealing with that, how would you assess that? Should it be assessed and should it receive a support at all? Whenever I do my annual report, I'm very pained. I'm only talking about whether 5 crores has been spent and spent in what. But what about the quality change that we have brought about in the lives of so many people? For example, when I ask aid for recreation centers for the elderly people, because they are very alone, they don't meet people like themselves. When we set up a recreation center, it is treated very lightly. Oh, we would rather not choose a recreation center, but do you have something for a poverty alleviation program? Yes, I said, yes, we do have a ration supply, which does go to about 1,000 very poor people. But don't you think the recreation need also looks into a very niche aspect of suffering, not generally seen and recognized by people?
So I think both of us
Yeah,
would
Ravi,
love to respond.
both of you are going to
but
pounce
since
on
I have
me.
the microphone, I think you raise an incredibly important thing. Not everything can be measured, okay, and certainly not in financial terms. And you've talked about, the reduction of suffering, of sorrow, of all these kinds of things. There's also the spirit of joy. Our performing arts in India have, are really languishing for lack of support. Whether it's dance, whether it's literature, it's music, these are highly, highly underfunded fields. So, and I'm not saying that everything should go towards only sort of creating jobs or governance and all that. I think there are many wonderful things which are deserving of our giving and so forth, and I don't diminish that. However, I would say that there is an importance of measuring impact, okay? There are 3.3 million NGOs in India. It's the largest number of NGOs in any country in the world. It's also relatively, there's this organization called Give India, which measures and ranks things on or NGOs based on whether they're worth supporting or not. And I'm not saying they may be completely right, but according to them, about less than 10% of them are worthy of support across all fields, because there's a lot of waste, there's a lot of fraud. Okay? So when you are putting your hard-earned money to work, you want to make sure that whatever cause you're contributing to, okay, the money will be well utilized. Now, it's not precisely measurable in financial terms. Or,
Ravi,
sorry,
that has got to be done because give
sorry,
India,
what
for
has to be
example,
done? I'm sorry, I didn't.
no, measurement.
Yes.
Measurement of the well-being and
Correct.
the wellness also
Correct.
got to be done.
Yes.
What Give India does is to give credibility.
Yes.
It says, okay, this NGO is doing good work. It is not amassing money and all their
Exactly.
accounts are perfect
Yeah.
and all that. But
And they can come up with 10%.
they don't measure how much of alleviation of pain and suffering
Correct.
or joy, measurement of joy, for example.
And that onus is on the giver. I think, those who are actually writing the check have to actually go there, engage, and assess how well are they doing. So in SVP, there's a disciplined venture investment process, but it's not about, because we're giving money. We don't expect it back. This is not an investment, nothing. This is actually a grant over 3 years. But what you do is do a lot of due diligence on what is the impact that this organization is hoping to create, how many lives are they touching, etc. I don't sense that there is a fundamental contradiction in that sense.
There isn't at all, Ravi. Now, what I'm hearing from her, and correct me if I'm wrong, as a social scientist, I think this is something, measurement is a part of any scientist's lexicon. What I'm hearing is simply this, is it is the responsibility of the NGO to talk about the impact
Correct.
that it's making. And if I may just add to that, many of the NGOs, most of the NGOs, if I can be a little bold here, talk about the activity that they have undertaken, but they don't measure outcomes.
Yes.
Which is the
And
impact.
so-
But that's what I heard from you. Is that correct?
So the discipline of looking at outcomes in whatever field the organization is operating in is, I think, quite important, because you're basically using other people's money, and therefore you are accountable in that sense.
Absolutely.
Can I just add?
Yeah, I sort of agree with almost everything Ravi said. The additional element I would add is that rigor and accountability doesn't have to be numbers and things of that nature. It can be fun. It can be fully subjective, and the framework for how you communicate that subjectivity can be entirely yours. So if you define an outcome to be the joy that it is being provided to an elderly person in the recreation center, then it is up to you to define that as an outcome, subjective as it is, to the outside world. And some people will see it naturally. I mean, the performing arts, as Ravi was saying, is all about joy. There's no return, there's no ROI. It's about joy. It's about, not just mere joy. In speaking in financial terms, it is 10x leverage on your input of time. If you can listen to an opera or a classical music concert, how do you define what the return is at all? But yet there is quality, and you can distinguish somebody who's not so good from somebody who's very good, and you can distinguish a good acoustic system from a bad acoustic system, and so on. So in a same way, I think the disservice that many sort of pure NGO types are doing is they are saying, trust us, we're doing good. And that's not enough for people who are not fully engaged with observing that trust.
I totally agree. Somebody taught me very early in my life, trust, but verify.
Yeah.
But for verifying, you need measurement and data. And I completely understand what you're saying about the subjective stuff. And I happen to be from a sector which does this for a living. We take stuff that is completely subjective, put a number to it, and call it a grade. And that's what we do in education, day in and day out. And most of what education is, and by the way, most of them do an absolutely outstanding job, because that's exactly what they need to do. Now, you could argue about the outcome structure and the framework that's used and so on and so forth, but the fact of the matter is that's something which is done day in and day out. You just have to take it up to the the NGOs and the causes that you expose. So let me ask you this. I'm almost hearing from what the others are saying, there is almost a Maslow's hierarchy here. So you give for hunger, the next level is you give for curing a disease, and the level after that is you give for getting a job or creating careers and jobs of people. And then you go above that, you give for softer aspects like loneliness and so on and so forth. And finally, you have art and the joy and all of that. Is this making sense to you, this kind of hierarchy?
Yes.
Yeah. And I just want you to now go beyond the what Vasant Ratna does, and then just look at the larger art part of it as well. And is that something? Right. Because many people here, I presume, are very fond of art in different ways, music and art, and many aspects of art are deeply in need of help. And art, through the ages, has sustained through philanthropic support of some kind, be it the king or the government or whatever.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with Anand and Ravi here. Arts is absolutely neglected sector, and people don't realize that actually by supporting art, you will get something that is priceless, that you cannot peg it at any tag. And what you take away is actually food for your soul to survive the domesticity of life, the mundane life. And human life is to be lived beyond that. All this is just normal, basic maintenance of the body, But art is where it brings that elevation, that spiritual touch to who we are and why we are and why we actually need each other. I think it connects us at that highest and deepest level, and that's why my passion for art is, that's what's keeping me going through whatever has happened in my life. I thank dance for being my mainstay, my core, my touch earth, like I said. So you can't price that. You can't peg it at anything. And it's true that people don't support art, because I don't see why they don't support art. It's they will pay for anything. That you will go to a 5-star restaurant and pay 15,000 on a meal, but when it comes to paying an artist, you'll say 25,000. Okay, we'll think about it. That's the reality. It's shocking. So, okay, I want to. You want this? Not yeah. Art, okay. I just wanted to go back to a point that Ravi was making earlier, and talk from my own experience about when I started the foundation. And the first thing people were, after that initial reach out to me, they were like, how can we help you? And very many people were reaching out to their pockets to sign out checks. And I had started the foundation. It was a trust. It was an NGO. We had got ATG exemption, but I must have been one of those really funny NGOs who said, please don't give me money yet, because let me figure out how I'm going to use it. And to me, it's a responsibility. I don't want your money without knowing what I'm going to actually do and how I'm going to process it and how I'm going to do what I want to do. So I must have been one of those really weird ones who said, don't give me money yet. So
that's called accountability. So, all right.
Yeah, actually, the contrast on the panel is much less than the contrast it should be versus religious giving. And in India, a disproportionate amount of money goes to outsource your doing good to the Almighty rather than to other organizations. And it may be a pet peeve of mine, but it just seems to me that the relative amount of money that goes to famous temples, even more than neighborhood temples, even if that distinction you want to make, it just seems such a travesty given where India is in its evolution. So, if I could leave you with one other idea, it would be at least diversify away from the neighborhood religious institution.
Let me build on Somebody should circulate, Raj maybe, you should circulate. The McKinsey recently came out with a report which looked at, where does funding go in India across sectors. Obviously, religion is right up there. It's probably overfunded. But three sectors which are, desperately of need and for your consideration are performing arts, human rights, and governance. Okay? So organizations that are focused on these three things are probably desperately more in need, and you might want to think about that.
On that note, just a quick next point to any of the panelists who wants to take up. I heard about giving money and how you have to be careful about where your money goes, and we talked about that. It's absolutely critical. I think it's very important for everybody to be and we talked about outcomes. What about giving time? And what about giving a piece of your heart? I mean, honestly, that's next level, right? You really involve yourself. Is that giving? I mean, is that something that people should consider as a part and parcel of their own architecture, as we started talking about?
No, it absolutely is giving. In fact, in at least the studied version of giving, it's a higher form of giving. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, if, my sister lives in the United States, and one of the things she does is that a group of women get together and cook for others who ask them to cook, like a catering service, and they donate the money to the local charity. So she and I have a raging debate, because each of the women who actually do this are doctors or nurses and they're all of professions that have variable income. So if they spend one more hour being a doctor, then they earn, let's say, X. So my constant debate with them is whether that hour is better spent being a doctor and turning the money over, or being a caterer and turning 1/10 of the money over. And she comes back with the emotional, social, community answer to this. So again, I don't pretend to know that the answer of merely the X, which is 10 times greater than the X provided by catering, is better. But there is that debate. So time is a in fact, the most precious resource of our times. And so I would use it very wisely. But for each of us, the answer to the value of time can be very different.
I agree. I think I started out by talking about this need to give back that comes to many of us at some point in our lives. I don't think that need can be quenched by simply writing a check. Absolutely. That has been my experience, that unless you also get engaged with the organization and ultimately the people whose lives you're trying to improve or touch, if you don't have forged that emotional connection, that satisfaction, that hunger, never goes away. So I think it's incredibly important and precious at some stage to start rolling up your sleeves and giving back.
Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more. The only thing to be remembered is that when you promise to give your time, when you promise to give money and then you cut a check, your bank account gets debited. So, it's done. But when you promise to give time, oftentimes it doesn't get debited in advance. So you really have to figure out a way by which you keep your promise. And it's not easy for us, many of us who are engaged in several other, we have a profession and many other commitments. And I think that's really what I wanted to highlight here. So giving, you have money, but time is the most precious commodity of our times. Narayan is absolutely correct. But when you make that commitment, and I think NGOs need to depend on it, and it's nobody's intentions to be undependable. It's the force of circumstances, but we have to force the circumstances to ensure that our commitment gets met. On that note, let me just open it up to there are many, many other things that the Entrust team actually gave me a list of points that they wanted me to cover. And if I did that, then we will be speaking for the rest of till breakfast. So since dinner is what they had promised, I can't really do that. So let me just open it up to the audience. Any questions anybody has? Any reaction, thoughts? But prefer questions so that we'll make it as an interactive stuff. Yes, please.
I was very interested
back seat. Thank you. Have taken a back seat. And there's been a kind of a, what should I say? I'm not bothered.
Apathy.
There's nothing I can do. So what can I do? So let me just do nothing. You know? But I've not come across an NGO. The basic problem I feel for the governance, for the old age problems, for law and order is today in India, we do not have a strong judiciary, a strong justice system. Yes, there are judges. Yes, there is a justice system, but there is what is called justice denied, justice delayed is justice denied. And cases and human rights and old age issues, the safety, the trust factor has gone because cases just go on and on and on and on. And by the time you do get some justice, you've forgotten about it. You don't even want it anymore. Is there an NGO which can be created which I don't like to use the word cops because I find them not really good, but of a similar, better nature where elderly people can be brought together in groups, which gives them a sense of purpose, where people come to them and ask them, this is my problem, this is what's happening to me, the judiciary system, my local police guys will not do anything, I can't go to a lawyer, I can't go to a judge. Can you get together, address my problem one-to-one, or have a group of lawyers which will take this up for me and fight it out for me? The kind of security, safety issues which need to be addressed are as severe as food, education, and any other issue that was brought about. So when Mr. Ravi said, what is it that the the middle class can do, or what else is an NGO which can take part in this? I feel a judiciary NGO or a legal system NGO is what is required. Today, why are politicians so carefree? Why is the police so absolutely bindas, or what should I say, safe? Nothing can be done to them. There's no accountability. There's nothing. There's nothing one can do to it. A constable can beat you up, get away with it. Yesterday I was reading a case about a school where a 3-year-old was molested, and the ayah handed over the baby to the 3-year-old to the driver, and she's got away clean free because she's a constable's wife.
Yeah.
You know, so there is nothing. I'm very interested about the legal side, about the justice issue being addressed so that the people learn the meaning of fear again. The guys in power have no fear. They can get away with murder, they can get away with anything because there's nothing countering them.
So, may I?
Go ahead, Ravi.
Yeah, please.
I couldn't agree with you more. Somebody asked me, I think it was Wall Street Journal asked me, if you were God for a day in India, what would you do? I said, I'd fix the judicial system.
Yes.
And the reason I reached that conclusion is, I have a house in Pune, and I made the stupid mistake of renting it to a guy who's a builder. He stopped paying rent. 18 months it's been in the judicial system.
Yes.
And it gets postponed. It's not even had a hearing. And I've gone to everybody, Sharad Pawar, Chief Minister, all sorts of things. Everybody says, you're a fool to trust the judicial system. You should have got some gundas and thrown him out.
Exactly.
Okay?
So it's the law of the jungle, jungle law back again.
And that's when I realized this is such a desperate issue.
Yeah.
And it's no longer affecting only Aam Aadmi and the poor. It's now touching every one of our lives.
So
even
why
people.
don't we have NGOs
So
addressing
this is
that?
where I feel strongly that if
Yeah.
we sort of neglect the governance issues in our country, we're really going to be in trouble. And so, I looked at, organizations like this ADR, Association for Democratic Reforms. Here's one small NGO, 2 IIM professors, and they've single-handedly made a substantial dent in this issue of criminals in politics, or PRS. Okay? So these are the two things that we always hold up. But I believe that we need to strengthen such organizations or create new organizations that can take on these issues and, bring accountability to the system. And so people like you who care about the country with the resources and means, the influence, This is what we all have to do.
And you raised the question about NGOs becoming visible, becoming accountable, showing results, having result sheets or performance sheets, or showing who's become happy. Now, I think a single answer to 2-3 questions which can be addressed in this is someone where they can actually publish the number of cases that they've handled or won or at least addressed. That's visibility. But I have tried everywhere and I haven't come across anyone who's really addressing these issues.
If we find
Yeah.
one, will you support them?
I will start one.
Yeah,
I will,
actually-
with your help.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Yeah,
Actually,
with your help.
We'll support you.
Ma'am, there are helplines. Like, for example, we have a helpline for the elderly people. Nightingale Trust, the person is here. They also have a elder helpline. And the government is also bringing a national helpline and district helpline. All of them do address the legal problems that the senior citizens are facing.
No, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I understand about the helplines, but it stops there. You see, they don't
No,
take
it
it
helps.
forward.
No, for example, we have in Bangalore, one of the very top leading legal practitioners, Mr. Shivakumar, gives his time voluntarily, does not even charge, and does help the elderly who have got stuck in a legal case. They don't know where to go, who to believe. And so, and even in the system itself, there is a new Act of 2007, where you don't even have to have lawyers in order to fight your case.
Yes.
So
That's what I
you
mean,
go to
yeah.
this, it's tribunals. Tribunals need to be set up in all 610 districts of India, according to that act. But where tribunals are there, senior citizens who are having problems, any legal problem, they can simply go there and present, don't even have to spend on a lawyer. So this provision is there, but the awareness that there is a provision like this is very,
That's what-
it's not there at all.
It's
Yeah.
basically a group needs to get together who are not lawyers, who can be lawyers, it's not that they shouldn't be, but who address this situation and see to its end, not just say, okay, you can do this under section so and so, you can fight this,
Yeah.
this is a case number, this. What happens when you go to court? It's a case, it's another case, and as was said in Bollywood movies, Tariq pe Tariq, Tariq pe Tariq, it just goes on
So
endlessly.
if you are a senior citizen, there is even a provision in the High Court, you have a right to priority. You can bring it up. You can appeal
But
to the
how
judge.
How many
But-
times does it get implemented?
If I could,
Yeah.
if I could just add one thing, I agree with everything and the nature of your question as well. But one observation is India is so heterogeneous, as was said earlier, and its problems so diverse and so immense that looking for silver bullets across the board are unlikely to happen. So I'll give you an example of an organization that we support. It's called Snehalaya. It's in Ahmednagar. And its sole purpose is to help the legal issues surrounding the children of sex workers. And they have individually been responsible for some of the best legislation related to this area. But you would think Ahmednagar wouldn't even need an organization for sex workers at all. It's a 2-bit town in the middle of nowhere in Maharashtra. And there it has such an immense need. So if you just count the number of towns like Ahmednagar in India, that itself is 500 to 1,000. So I think, the idea of scale and local input, both are necessary for this reason, because the problems are so large and complex.
And it's therefore about, at one level, it's about rights, individual rights. So you were talking to me yesterday about one of the things that your NGO does is actually you fight the cause to make people aware, the martyrs' wives aware of their rights, and then you fight it through, isn't it? So you just wanted to quickly talk about that.
Just very quickly, ma'am, what you're saying is very true. I agree with you. There are a lot of laws and stuff in India which are not implemented, and people don't even know about it. Awareness is lacking. in my own case, I didn't know so many things of what were my rights and what were my dues after my husband was martyred. So in the same way, in other sectors also, there are things that people don't know. And this information is not disseminated in our country, and that's again a problem of governance. So I agree with you in that sense that there is a huge gap there, and we need to kind of fill in. And one of the things that my organization is doing for my target group is also this, liaising with government agencies, making sure that all their rights and dues are given to them. And that is not easy, trust me. It's very, very difficult. Because there's also apathy and indifference there. They just don't care.
And I think that's the point that, just to close this, I absolutely agree with. There are two points here. Number one is, and I think that's what I heard Ravi say, this strong sense of indignation that we have against something that we feel is completely wrong, we must ensure gets channelized into an actionable area where we invest, like you said, money. Narayan talked about time. And that's, I think, the lesson. There's here. There's another point which came up, and we were just talking about it outside. To me, if this strong sense of indignation is not channelized, for whatever reason, right? Either there is no channel that's visible or available, or for whatever reason it's not channelized. And that's what's happening in India, and Ravi started off with that right at the beginning. It gets converted into indifference. And to me, the biggest enemy to I make a difference is indifference. And I think to break that indifference, just feeling good about or feeling great about, really want to help, ain't good enough. We really have to get out of that into a mode where we are able to create, to go back to what I talked about, an architecture. I'll take one last question, if anybody has. Oh, there are two of them then. We'll take both.
There's been a lot of interest of late. I mean, if you look at India, the culture, like you people were discussing, has been ad hoc giving, very informal way of giving, helping out people working at home or, donating to temples and things like that. Of late, there's been a lot of interest from, especially, wealthy Indians to kind of give away, because the concept was quite alien. In India, we kind of save up the wealth for the next generation, right? So now they're passing on this giving as a legacy to the next generation. I think that's really tremendous. It's going to help quite a bit. So people have come across, even corporates with the new CSR initiatives, what I'm coming across is that people don't know where to channelize these funds. Now they want to do it, whether they're compelled to do it or they really want to do it, they want to give. They are stuck at options. So the accountability, the transparency thing that we were discussing, I think holds a lot of importance here, because people want to know where the money is going and how well it has been utilized. So anything that can be done to structurally change the way NGOs work, how can we make it more transparent?
Actually, the laws are pretty clear. NGOs have to be transparent. I think, without getting into details, and there are two people here, Ravi, you've been doing Narayan, you're also involved, you have to be transparent. The problem is the implementation of the law. Out of the 3.3 million NGOs that Ravi alluded to, a significant number of them are started for purposes which are, shady to downright nefarious, and therefore, this whole practice of non-transparency has become almost a norm. But my point is, don't worry about them. Out of the 3.3 million, I suppose that every one of us has to find 10 of them, 5 of the, causes or NGOs that we have to support. And I think that's not going to be that difficult if we decide to put, time, money and effort. And that's one of the things. I have a request to the Entrust team. I've always told them that make an attempt to unearth 200 NGOs. I mean, you don't have to be an extraordinarily large number. And over a period of time, it will grow, because every one of us, after our own experiences, will contribute to that kitty. And that number will grow over a period of time. The thing is to have a structure. Give India, he talked about a structure by which the outcomes are, assessed and measured. And I think that will also come over a period of time. Conversations such as these and impact, a much larger impact that every one of you will make, I'm sure will end up in any other views on this quickly?
I'm going to make a shameless pitch. The mission of Social Venture Partners is to help people become better philanthropists. Okay, we don't need your money. You decide how you give it. But if this path interests you, join us. You'll find like-minded people, and I guarantee one thing: 2, 3, 4 years from now, you're going to be much, much clearer and smarter about how you want to invest your money. And so, join us. That's the payback of my being here this evening.
I thought somebody had a question. One more question somewhere. Yeah. No? Where was it? Oh, Shobha.
No, it's
Sorry.
some-
Yeah, the lights are too bright.
I have a question for Ms. Subhashini, and I don't know how to ask it without seeming rude. The gentlemen were talking about scale, and you were talking about 35 families. Are you thinking about scaling it, or?
See, you know what I'm doing? I'm working with 35 families now. And I believe if I empower them, that will just spread like the ripple effect. You know, they will be able to affect 5 families around them. Each of them, if they take on 5 families, we will spread. You know, so I don't look at it as scaling. I look at it as spreading. Yes.
I was just telling her yesterday when she shared this with me, this is the positive impact of multi-level marketing.
I don't know any management, trust me. I'm seeing stars with these 2 guys here. And I'm like, oh God, I don't know so many things. so I'm just, you know, somebody was telling me, stop working with your heart, use your head also a little bit. I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but it doesn't matter. I'm touching somebody's life, it doesn't matter. So I actually wanted to take on a point about that religious thing in India. And see, we all contribute to temples. And we've started a new thing called Gift a Birthday, where I said I want to recognize divinity in every other human being. So I said, if I'm going to celebrate my birthday, if my father wants to celebrate his birthday in a temple, by having a special puja, we'd rather do, gift a birthday on a martyr's child's birthday, or the lady. Because truly, nobody actually thinks of the woman. You know, in India, for all its progression, the woman is still not treated on par. I really say this very honestly, because I know women in rural India who really treated very badly. And why? Just because she's lost her spouse. What are we talking about progress in this country? I'm really sad.
On that somber note, we have to bring this to a conclusion. We heard a multitude of views, and my takeaways personally, has been a tremendous learning experience for me. 3 or 4 things that kind of stood out. One, and I think that's, as Narayan very clearly said, each one of us has to discover our own individual path. And it's a framework that we need to create for ourselves. And it's going to take some effort, and I'm adding that, some effort from each and every one of us. Several years back, I decided to do that. And I have found over the last 4 years, when I have actually spent time and sit on a couple of boards of NGOs and so on and so forth, I support a couple more. And I have found that the areas that I have chosen for myself, and I'm really not yet reached a point where I can turn around and say, as what Ravi has, where it's really started to make a multiplier difference. But what is really telling me very, very clearly is, if I have to do something about it, I have to. That's what you do in our professional lives, right? If you wanted to do something, if you want to have a goal, I'll actually invest time. And I think that's one very important takeaway. The second takeaway that I heard is, there are a number of different areas, you know, whether it is elder care, solace to elders, to rights of martyrs' wives, to the areas, you know, you talked about giving a job, and what Narayan does is gives a pill, 1 in a year, you know, and that makes a difference to 35 million kids already. Or the multiplier stuff that Ravi spoke about. There are multiple different things. There are causes that are not popular, you know, and as the Entrust team said, that what about supporting Alzheimer's or areas of that kind? And, you know, I always distinguish between supporting, causes that are events and eventualities. You know, in Uttarakhand, and that's an example that I keep taking, you know, we normally tend to cut a check for an event that has happened, you know. There is a tsunami that's happened, or there is a disaster somewhere. Events trigger a response, And that response often is money, material, and time, right, for a short period of time. And that's the reason why events are something. You can do that, feel good about it, move on with life. But when you start working on eventualities, give somebody a career. That's an eventuality that you grant that person, right? Give somebody solace and a sense of taking away the loneliness. That's an eventuality on a continuous basis that you give. It's a lot tougher thing to do. And I think it's important for us to again distinguish. And I think a lot of the ideas that came up related to stuff that are sustainable over a period of time. And not to say don't give to temples, not to say don't give it to events, but really think about it before you do. And even the temple, what do we do? It's easier for us to put money in a hundi rather than maybe do something which the temple is doing, which is a different kind of an event. So I think this is something that will help us, I believe, individually start thinking. And finally, the other thought that came is recognizing that we need to seek, and unless we seek, as givers we seek, we are not going to find. We seek outcomes and governance in the NGOs that we support. And when we ask, or when we seek as givers, as individual givers, I'm very, very, very sure the kind of NGOs that you will all identify, if they are not doing so already, they will respond. And they will respond in a way that's exciting, that's satisfying, and most importantly, that is sustainable over a period of time. So we talked about giving. There is a saying in my mother tongue, which is Tamil, and those of you who understand Tamil may understand this. It says, "Sevikku unavillada poludhu siridhu vayittrukkum iyappadum." What it means is, if you don't have stuff to give to your ears, you have to give something to the stomach. So I think dinner is waiting outside, and I will stop here and leave it to the Entrust team to take it on from here.
We request the panelists to kindly stay back on stage. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure there is so much to take back from this panel discussion, truly enlightening. Can we once again give a huge round of applause to all the panelists and, of course, our moderator. May I request Ms. Rajeshwari Kurup to kindly come forward. And on behalf of Entrust, we have a small memento. May I request you to kindly hand it over to Mr. Ravi Venkatesan. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and thank Mr. Ravi Venkatesan. May I now request Mr. Ramesh Bukka to kindly come forward and hand over a small token of appreciation to Mr. Narayan Ramachandran. Ms. Apali Acharya to kindly come forward and hand it over to Ms. Subhashini Vasant. We need a group picture post this with all the panelists. May I request Mr. Rakesh to kindly join us and hand over the memento to Dr. Sheelu Srinivasan. I request Murli P. to kindly come forward and hand over a small token of appreciation to our moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Anand Sudarshan. May I request all the panelists for a group photo, opt, and also reminding that for the rest half of the evening where you will be networking, of course, if you have any further queries, you can always interact. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, can you please put our hands together for all the panelists and the moderator. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Well, just before we present the vote of thanks, we also want to take this opportunity to thank and recognize the efforts put in by our business associates. May I request Mr. Subbu Subramaniam, wherever he is. He was with us when Rajmohan sir introduced. Well, he's been a mentor to us. May I request all of you to kindly give him a huge round of applause once again. May I request Mr. R. Senthil Kumar to kindly come forward, please. Well, with over 17 years of professional experience in sales, relationship management, business solutions consulting, he has been interacting with stakeholders at as the domain expert. Let me tell you that he's helped us with our tagline that you see, engage, enrich, and excel. Can we please give a huge round of applause to Mr. R. Senthil Kumar, and I'll request Mr. Ramesh Ji to kindly do the honors.
Thank you. May I request Mr. Mahendran to kindly come forward? He's helped us design our logo. Well, he's a designer who chose designing as passion. His firm is called as Mar Ingegni. It is derived from the Italian word which means sea of creativity. He has over a decade of experience and has designed 100+ logos for international clients, which also includes the US Senator Libos. May I request Rajeshwari to kindly come forward and hand over a small token of appreciation. So I'll request you to kindly join us by the main stage. And ladies and gentlemen, can we give him a huge round of applause? Thank you so very much. And just before we allow you to enjoy the rest of the evening and of course get into networking, may I request Mr. Ramesh Buka, who is the co-founder and the director of Entrust, to present the vote of thanks. He has over 16 years of experience, primarily in the private banking before turning entrepreneur. He has built expertise in investment advisory and research. In addition, he has been closely tracking the equities market for over 2 decades now. With his expertise, experience, and technical know-how that he's acquired from his work life, he's the backbone for Entrust product and advisory team. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ramesh Buka.
Yeah, there's a small announcement to make before I start. Raj, can you do that?
No, actually, Rohini Nilekani was supposed to come and address all of us. She was the guest speaker. Unfortunately, she was indisposed. She couldn't come. So just wanted to make this announcement.
Thank you all for the patient hearing. Just want to kind of a few thoughts crossing my mind in terms of the discussion that we've had. It's more in terms of certain things which are very powerful that I kind of could take away from this. Setup of an architecture for giving, make a difference with giving, and empower through giving. It's been very enlightening discussion on philanthropy, more as an act of giving or a calling for giving as such. Ladies and gentlemen, our endeavor through this panel discussion has been to plant a seed of thought in all our minds to continue to do something which will make a difference to all of us. And the people that we care about. I take this opportunity to thank our esteemed panelists, Dr. Sheila Srinivasan, Mrs. Subhashini Vasant, Mr. Narayan Ramchandran, Mr. Ravi Venkatesan, and our moderator, Mr. Anand, for this enriching discussion. On behalf of Team Entrust, I'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks to all of you, our clients, our mentors, and well-wishers for joining us in this evening on our first anniversary, and making it very memorable for all of us. Thank you for your unstinted support and encouragement, and we look forward to this continuing in the years to come. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank a few more people who have constituted to make this evening a success. Thank you, Dinesh, for setting up the stage and the logistics. Ms. Divya, our host here. Ms. Akshara for the lovely rendition, and Team Taj Westend for the complete support in getting this organized. Though there was a bit of delay, as such. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we all request you to join us for cocktails and dinner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just before you all leave the hall, can I request all of you, it is the first anniversary. Can we give the hugest round of applause to the Entrust team right here and congratulate them? Do get your hands over the wide spread of buffet, which is served at the pre-function area. Do enjoy the bar as well. Have a great evening ahead. Of course, our Entrust team will be around in case any kind of help or assistance. And I'm around here, so I'm going to request for those of you who want to give us just a couple of sound bites in terms of memory and your wishes, please do join me right here by the stage offline. Thank you once again. Have a great evening ahead. Get your hands over the wide spread of buffet and enjoy the bar. Thank you and good night.